Well, hopefully it's not the last one, but if it is, I sure am feeling good about my life choices to essentially not sleep at all except for on the plane between Texas Motor Speedway and Sebring International Raceway to be here for what can only be described as a classic Texas race. And it's amazing because I really do think, and I know some people will probably disagree with me on this and say 2017 is the best, but I think by far, this is the best IndyCar race at Texas on this particular configuration of the track with turn one higher banked and wider. I have to tell you just first off that the experience of IndyCar racing on a high banked super speedway. I've never experienced it before. I wasn't as mobile as I am now when they were running at Fontana. I was a an early preteen when they stopped running at Michigan, and I never got out here to Texas Motor Speedway until today. But I have to tell you, I watched the beginning of the race on the inside of turn one, and the sensation of speed, despite the fact that there's some 10 to 15 to 20 miles per hour slower per lap than at Indianapolis, is unbelievable. And the lap times are so short. You just start to see the back of the field leave the picture, or at least the picture of your eyes, and then you start hearing the leaders come back through. It's unbelievable. And, I have to tell you, it's funny because I went into this planning actually before everybody started spilling the Milwaukee news to tell you guys that it's very, very likely that Milwaukee is going to replace Texas on the IndyCar schedule next year. And while I certainly advocate for Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee needs to be on the calendar, I think more oval racing just in general, but after today's race, I really don't think Milwaukee should come at the expense of Texas. I'm not saying Milwaukee shouldn't come, but Texas today reminded me of why we like oval racing. There was attrition, mechanical attrition. You looked at Felix Rosenquist, the pole sitter, had something go wrong in the rear end. Alexander Rossi had something wrong with the wiring loom. Looked like Roman Grosjean possibly blew an engine. Then you had some of the accidents and rookie mistakes, particularly those of Devlin DeFrancesco, and we'll talk to not only him later in this video, but also to Elio Castro Neves. Woo, we almost lost the camera. And that is another factor in this day, is this headwind. Just got out of the media center and listened to Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, the two kind of principal protagonists and antagonists, no matter how, or however you want to look at it, in today's finish. And they said one of the big factors, more so than the cool weather. A lot of people have been attributing the cool weather to the passing and the excitement that we saw today. But they said the headwind rather than a tailwind down the main straightaway helped. The more downforce that IndyCar gave the teams this weekend helped. But what also helped, Joseph Newgarden admitted it, is that special session where yesterday the teams ran around the outside groove and rubbered it in. And Scott McLaughlin actually went as far as to say, hey, we should do that at all tracks to make it make that groove just that much wider, because today you saw 2 wide racing, not 3 wide. When it got 3 wide, unfortunately there was a big accident. But yeah, man. So I guess I'll talk about that finish real quick because I've got a ton of interviews to get to show you guys. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it because coming off of turn 4 over here, Joseph Newgarden, with about 2 laps to go, got the rear end very, very sideways, almost got the wall. I thought he did, and of course, not only Joseph Newgarden, but virtually everybody in the building here thought that was the end of Joseph Newgarden's race. But Joseph Newgarden didn't, and Joseph Newgarden sent it in turn 3. Lap traffic, held Scott McLaughlin up just enough that there was just enough dirty air that Joseph Newgarden came around and crossed the line in first place. A close finish at a 1.5 mile oval in an IndyCar race that isn't post 2000 or pre 2011. I think that is absolutely spectacular. What was also really spectacular today, and unfortunately it was spectacular for the wrong reasons, were some of the accidents today. And there was a common theme, unfortunately, in all of them, and that was Devlin DeFrancesco. He made contact with Takuma Sato. Sato got into the wall. There was a very close encounter with Kyle Kirkwood. It's kind of hard to tell whether they made contact or not, but ultimately Kirkwood got into the PJ1 and had a tremendous accident, but none were more tremendous than the accident of Graham Rahal, Elio Castroneves, and Devlin DeFrancesco. And we got to speak with Elio and Devlin and Kyle to talk about those incidents. Here's what they had to say. Elio, you're obviously one of the most experienced drivers in the field, and Devlin is one of the least experienced. Are you ever going to sit down with him and maybe explain what he did wrong to him and try to help him out?
Look, I can only help if people accept that. I cannot just go and tell him what to do if the person is not open to it. I'm always open to anybody, not only rookies, but anybody that wants to do it. In the end of the day, yeah, I would love to, but he needs to accept as well.
I mean, you guys are corporate teammates. Is that gonna? I mean, obviously that's gonna come up, right?
Yeah, but again, I'm always arms wide open, and if he wants, fine. If it doesn't bother me either.
You know, we were very strong. The number 29 power top on Andretti Steinbrenner Honda was very good. We were making moves, great pit stops as well, and just a shame to end like that.
One of the other major storylines, and I bet some of you are surprised I haven't said it yet, is a top 6 finish for Jimmie Johnson in his first IndyCar oval race. I predicted 14th. Boy, was I wrong. Jimmie was absolutely fantastic. And he proved, quite honestly, why he is truly one of the greatest oval racers to ever live. Because, in your first oval race, and I don't care if you're driving for Chip Ganassi Racing, I don't care if you're driving the best car, the fact that he took the fight to Scott Dixon at a track in which Scott Dixon has owned in Indy cars. Now, granted, Jimmie Johnson has owned this track in stock cars, but the fact that they were so evenly matched when you consider Dixon's experience versus Jimmie's inexperience in these cars, it was just fantastic. Here's some comments I got from Jimmie Johnson talking about his day today. Particularly, I asked him about the Highline because he seemed to be making the Highline work better than most any driver.
I watched Graham Rahal use it quite effectively at the beginning of the race, and I just studied him. He passed me 2 or 3 times up there. I watched him pass a car or 2 in front of me up there and just watched his line and watched where he could be aggressive and then started to make it work. I really never had the confidence to try it in turns 1 and 2 like Graham did, but 3 and 4 I found a little window to run in and make it work.
How important is that to run behind other cars in these open wheel cars and do that learning in the race?
Yeah, I mean, in the game, in the race, that's when a driver learns the most. And it's one thing to watch video, but to feel the G-forces, to feel the aerodynamics affect the car, understand where the weight on the tires are, then to use the gas, then to carry the momentum around the top. Like, there's a whole sequence of events that needs to happen. And when you're following a car and you can see him do it, then the light bulb goes off. You're like, oh, okay, now I see why, what, how, and then you try to apply that and go.
Yeah, it was cool. I didn't, because that last portion was so crazy, I nearly ran into the back of the 77 because he was going so slow, and that's where I got trained by another 3 cars. And Jimmie was one of them, and I was like going down here, and I looked at the pylon there, and I was like, man, he's ahead of us. So I was like, we just happy that he did such a tremendous job, and you can see, when he got out of the car, he's like, man, that was so much fun. He's like, I wish the race was just a bit longer, So yeah. That was cool to see, and obviously I think it's totally what we expect. So hopefully this gives him obviously confidence in the oval racing, but also on the road courses.
And in a day that was so chock full of storylines, we're still not done. Santino Ferrucci got a top 10 finish today, pitch hitting in a way that's just quite frankly unbelievable. Jack Harvey yesterday had a big crash coming off of turn 2. He was not medically cleared. He was feeling a bit foggy-headed this morning. And so Santino Ferrucci got the call. His seat was delivered from Indianapolis overnight. He did 6 laps of practice in a seat that did not fit. And here's what he had to say, particularly when I asked him about what he feels going into the Indianapolis 500, because he's got a great ride with Brian Reinbold Racing. You scored a top 10 with 6 laps of practice. You got to start thinking about the month of May. You get 2 weeks of practice there. What are the expectations?
Oh man, the month of May is just so different. We're going to take it nice and easy, nice and slow, really use our time. I'm looking forward to the Indy Open test. We're going to get all the kinks out of the car, all the bugs. But Dude, I'm a racer. I'm an oval racer. I think everybody knows that, especially by now. Come in, no practice, and have some fun. But I think Indy will be good. I think Dreyer's got a fantastic car. I'm liking the performance of the Chevys, even though I was driving for Honda today. So I feel pretty good about it. Like I said, Indy's a completely different beast. It's all about keeping your head screwed on straight and, not getting off target.
So certainly the finish favored Joseph Newgarden, but I think we've really got to talk about Scott McLaughlin because, quite frankly, if the race is one lap less, Scott McLaughlin is the runaway winner of the first 2 races of the season, one on an oval and one on a street course. And, from a points perspective, I think Scott McLaughlin's still coming out way ahead today. And I think, everybody looked at Scott McLaughlin going into this race as a potential race winner because he really figured it out last year with a much lower downforce package, a much more difficult Texas Motor Speedway with perhaps even more effective PJ1. And he finished second, gets second here by the closest of margins, but you got to look ahead. You start thinking about Long Beach, obviously street course, not quite the same as the street course in St. Petersburg, but there's really no reason to doubt Scott McLaughlin at this point. I think he's really showing and proving that he's everything that Roger Penske said he would be when he moved him over from the V8 supercars. Finally, I got quite an interesting interview to wrap up. Today, the fastest seat in sports was, piloted by my new pal Mario Andretti, but the passenger was a professional wrestler, and his name is Rey Mysterio. And we got an exclusive interview with WWE superstar Rey Mysterio ahead of WrestleMania. We're here with WWE superstar Rey Mysterio. Rey, this is your first time in an IndyCar race, and you got a very special opportunity. Tell me what you just did.
I'll tell you what, I jumped in a car with Mr. Mario Andretti. We were going 200 miles an hour, and it started off very slow, but I felt like a kid when he rides his first roller coaster. That's exactly what I felt. I'm amazed at the stability, the control that he has over that vehicle. Incredible.
I saw you hanging out with one of the new stars, Pato Award. What do you think of some of these athletes, obviously an athlete yourself, and what they have to do?
Man, I have a different respect for Indy racing. I've seen it on TV. I've never been to a place. This is my first time spending inside an Indy racetrack, so it's on a different level, man. The fans are incredible. The drivers are intense. Like, I can't even imagine the adrenaline that builds up right before they step on that track.
And obviously, the driver you were just with, Mario Andretti, has a great family legacy. His son, his grandson race. You're building your own family legacy in professional wrestling. Tell me about your match at WrestleMania, because you're going to fight Logan Paul and The Miz.
That is correct. Logan Paul and The Miz, 2 of the biggest trash talkers there is in this industry. And, of course, my son, who just broke into business 2 years ago. And, I will be sharing his first WrestleMania moment next to him. It's incredible. I tell you, this is it's an amazing opportunity. As much as it is for him, as it is for me, to be able to step in the ring with my son and get to share moments like these are priceless. But we do have to put an end to that trash talking. And that will happen this upcoming Saturday, April 2nd. At WrestleMania.
And so, that concludes my coverage of the XPEL 375 from Texas Motor Speedway. Again, like I said at the beginning, it sounds like it's the last one, but you know what? I hope they reconsider. I hope Texas Motor Speedway reconsiders. I hope IndyCar reconsiders. You have to say, though, the crowd was not very good, and it's a shame that some of the crowds that have come out for the not-so-good races in the past were not treated to the product that they were treated to today, because today's race was classic IndyCar oval racing at its finest, about as pure as the wind-driven snow, too. It wasn't like a last-lap restart really set up that finish. It was just pure hard racing in lap traffic, the 2 fastest cars going for the win, and ultimately Joseph Newgarden came out on top. So, as much as I want Milwaukee to come back, and I do I have to tell you, I think it is going to come back. Unfortunately, I do also think it's going to be at the expense of Texas Motor Speedway. And, you know, after what I've experienced today in person, the death-defying speed, the quickness, the close quarters racing of this facility, and just it's so massive, I can't believe that they can't make this work. And it's disappointing that the marriage may be over, but at the very least, if this is indeed the last race at Texas Motor Speedway for Indy cars, they left on a positive note. And I think that is more important than anything. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motor racing content. I'm going to go back to the hotel and have a sleep now. Thanks for watching.